I'm not even gonna lie, this is a hard one. Honestly, on one hand, we get the same beautiful design, laminated display, cheaper entry level price, and a beast of a chipset inside, but we also have some big compromises in the camera department. ProMotion is absent, and instead of 4 speakers, we only have 2. So I'm just left wondering, is this an upgrade or a downgrade? I really can't tell. I understand Apple wanted to fit this into a mid-range price point because we have the 9.7-inch iPad at $329, iPad mini at $399, and then it catapults over to $749 for the cheapest iPad Pro. So in terms of price, I see why Apple did it, but why so many compromises? We'll dive into just about everything new and also what was removed. So this one is going to go really in depth, and for the entirety of this video, I may say new iPad and iPad Air interchangeably. I'll also be saying iPad Pro so that you know I'm referring to the 10.5-inch 2017 iPad Pro. iPad Pro just rolls off the tongue easier than all of that. So yeah, just wanted to get that terminology out of the way. Anyway, let's dive into the unboxing. So we are back, we are live, and this time what we have is the brand new, well not really brand new, but the new iPad Air. And this time, Apple doesn't dub this the 3rd gen iPad Air, it's simply just iPad Air. So I personally think that this has a lot of compromises, although for the price point, you do get a lot for what you pay for. So anyway, similar to the iPad mini box, we are gonna have the iPad here in profile. So this is the bigger 10.5-inch size as opposed to your 7.9 on your iPad mini. On the top, again, we're gonna have a darker Apple logo to match the space gray. And this is a much darker space gray, but you can also pick it up in silver and the bronzy gold. Another Apple logo down here, iPad Air branding on the sides, and I decided to get a 64 gigabyte in Wi-Fi, but you can also pick it up with an LTE model just at $130 to the price. And so now again, as you'll notice, we do have a little pull tab here, which makes this unboxing real simple. So let's get in. And so we're presented beautifully with our new iPad Air with really reduced bezels. Oh man, that's real light. And so you'll notice right away the smaller bezels. This is the exact same design as the 10.5-inch iPad Pro from 2017. And by the way, this is a much darker space gray. We're gonna take a look at that in just a second. Inside, we're gonna have the same exact packet that we have in the iPad mini, just upscaled for size. Apple stickers, as well as very minimal instructions. And again, we do see here that we can use our 1st gen Apple Pencil, but we're not really interested in that. Again, we have the same power adapter. This is going to be a 12-watt power adapter, and we do have our Lightning to USB cable as well. So nothing that exciting. It's exactly the same as the iPad mini. What we really came here for, though, is the iPad Air. So this is an interesting product, and we're going to take a really close look and a deep comparison to its baby brother, or rather its big brother, the 10.5-inch iPad Pro from 2017. And that is the cleanest this is ever going to be. It's really nice. But so here we are going to have our FaceTime camera. On the bottom, we do have Touch ID. So this is going to be the physical button. It's not the haptic button like you had on the iPhone 7 and on the iPhone 8. So here on the bottom, we are going to have our down-firing speakers as well as our Lightning port to recharge our iPad. On the side, we are going to have, as you'll notice, our smart connector here for the smart keyboard that you can pick up for, I believe it's $150 or $179. It's somewhere along those lines. It's really expensive. Up here, we have nothing. On the top, we again have our 3.5mm jack, a microphone, and then our sleep wake button. On the other side, we're going to have nothing because this is the Wi-Fi model, but if you had the cellular model, you'd have a tray here for your SIM card. And up on top, we are going to have our volume rockers. On the back, iPad branding, as well as the Apple logo, and as well as our 8-megapixel camera, which is a downgrade from the 12-megapixel camera found on the iPad Pro. So look guys, I'm trying to love this iPad Air, I really am. It's just I feel too many compromises were made. First off, let's go in depth on everything new and missing with the iPad Air, which, side note, Apple is beyond confusing with their naming scheme. They revived the iPad Air lineup, and in actuality, this is the iPad Air 3, but it's just called the iPad Air, but whatever. So it still retains the same exact body and form factor as the iPad Pro. We get the same gorgeous display that is laminated, thankfully, and thank God they did leave this how it is. If this iPad wasn't laminated, I probably wouldn't have picked it up, honestly. The entry-level iPad, for those who don't know, has this very substantial gap between the actual display and glass, and it always feels like you're not really touching your display. It's like you have two thick ass screen protectors on. Like, why do you need that much protection? And guys, don't even think about wrapping up double. Don't ask me how I know. Anyway, yeah, I'm super glad the display is laminated, but sadly, ProMotion is entirely absent, which is some of the saddest facts of the year so far. If you haven't experienced ProMotion, no lie, you have to make a trip to an Apple store and check it out. ProMotion is a technology that makes your screen refresh at 120 Hz instead of the typical 60, which means that everything runs so smooth. It's almost impossible to portray on camera. Once you experience ProMotion, it's hard to go back. Like, you ever seen on cartoons how someone trips on LSD or something and they wave their hand in the air and it's like super slow and trippy? Okay, on God, that's how 60 Hz refresh rate screens look like now to me after being spoiled with 120 Hz. Y'all think I'm playing? It's a big downgrade for me. I know there are people out there who don't mind the regular 60 Hz display, and it's not bad, honestly. And I know this is totally nitpicky. I may just be too deeply invested into my tech, call me a nerd or whatever, but if you do, be ready to catch a quick fade. We still have the snappy Touch ID sensor, so no Face ID, but externally we hit another rough speed bump since you'll notice we only have 2 speakers instead of 4, like on the iPad Pro. Yet another big sheesh. Like, this isn't as big of a deal for me as much as the absence of ProMotion, but still some sad facts nonetheless. Like, 90% of the time you're in a room by yourself watching The Office, in which case the dual speakers are more than enough, but the other 10% of the time you may be at Starbucks, caught without your AirPods, or maybe the airport, or maybe your dumbass dog barking a bit too loud, and now you can't watch your adult videos in peace. Lastly, another external component you'll notice is the downgraded camera. You go from a 12 megapixel camera with LED flash and optical image stabilization to an 8 megapixel camera with no LED flash, and would you look at that, no optical image stabilization either. But look, let's be 1000% real for a second. Does anyone really care? I noticed because I'm a tech enthusiast, but in the 2-ish years I've had my iPad Pro, I have yet to take a single picture on it because 1, last thing I'm trying to do is look like a dumbass, and 2, actually, that's it. I'm just not trying to look dumb, so the downgrade in camera isn't that big of a deal, honestly. As a matter of fact, it's cool because now we don't have a camera bump, so I guess that's cool. Now, in terms of accessories, you'll notice these shiny 3 dots on the left-hand side of your device. These aren't just for show. Rather, they're used for the smart connector. You can buy the optional and expensive keyboard for somewhere around $150, and now you're talking about replacing your laptop, maybe. I used the iPad Pro with the keyboard when I was at university, and it's the exact same thing. It's so funny because on Apple's website, you can buy the iPad Air keyboard, but you'll receive the iPad Pro keyboard. I know, it's kind of funny. The iPad Pro was considerably lighter than carrying around a MacBook Pro, and the keyboard is big enough that it feels natural. You don't get the same responsiveness as typing on the butterfly keyboard, but the iPad keyboard is still nice. The iPad Air is also Apple Pencil compatible, however, you're stuck with the first gen Apple Pencil, so you'll still look real dumb charging. However, a quick note is that because this isn't the ProMotion display, if you really pay attention, you may notice increased latency on the Air as compared to the Pro since it is being refreshed at a slower rate. Sad facts. In terms of synthetic benchmark scores, I did run a quick Geekbench test to check the single core and multi-core performance. Quick spoiler, we do get gains, but the Pro is already beefed up. Think of the new Air with the A12 Bionic chip, like the A10X, but it chugged a whole can of pre-workout. Alright, enough of my stupid analogies. We have a 3,992 on the single core side with the Pro, and 4,800 single core on the iPad Air. That's about a 20% gain on the single core side, which isn't too bad honestly. On the multi-core side, we have scores of 9,589 and 11,522 respectively. Ironically, this is also roughly a 20% boost in performance. So obviously, Geekbench isn't the ultimate test that determines a product's worth, but it is a good indication of a product's capabilities. Hands down, the new Air is much more powerful, but the Pro still holds its own. A difference you won't catch right away is the processor, which I mean you won't see because it's internal, you know? The iPad Air comes with that very powerful A12 Bionic chip, the same chip that's on your iPhone XR and XS, and in terms of synthetic benchmarks, it's a pretty big leap forward in terms of performance. But, see, the thing is, never in 2019 would I say, dang man, my iPad Pro is so slow. The iPad Pro rocks the A10X chip and is no slouch. The Pro holds its own very well, so for the average consumer, if you have the Pro, you'll more than likely notice very minimal differences between the two performance-wise. Only time I think you'll notice bigger gains is while playing graphic-intensive games and editing videos straight on the iPad. So man, a lot of similarities, but many differences at the same time too. I do love the design of the Pro and I'm glad it transferred over to the Air. I love the reduced bezels and the slightly bigger 10.5-inch display as compared to the 9.7-inch. And it makes all the difference, especially with the pencil. Oh, and while mentioning the pencil, the Air is of course compatible with the first generation Apple Pencil, but not the second. You won't have to make any compromises on battery thankfully, but honestly, iPads are fantastic at battery life anyway. You'll still be able to squeeze out about 10 hours of battery life just like the Pro with mixed use, but honestly, I find I squeeze out much more than 10 hours. I don't know about you. I find I have to charge my iPad every third day or so, but some of you all may be heavier iPad users, so I don't know. Just know what I'm trying to say is battery remains the same, so yeah, don't fret. Not to mention, the Pro has 4 GB of RAM and the Air only comes in at 3. Other smaller improvements though can be found in the Air in the form of gigabit class LTE if you pick up one of the cellular models, and Bluetooth 5.0 as opposed to LTE Advanced and Bluetooth 4.2 on the Pro. So if Bluetooth and cellular connectivity are a big deal for you, then looks like the Air has your back. Now of course, as I mentioned earlier, this all boils down to money and how much you're gonna blow on it. The Pro has a starting price of $649 in 2017 for a Wi-Fi model with 64 GB of storage, while the Air comes in at a more affordable $499 for a Wi-Fi model with 64 gigs as well. $500 is a much easier pill to swallow than $649, and I'm sure no one can deny that. The Pro came in 4 different colors, that being silver, space gray, gold, and rose gold. The Air now comes only in 3. Silver, space gray, which by the way is much darker than the space gray on the Pro, but come on, Apple has about 3,000 different shades of space gray, so it's not even that deep at this point anymore. And gold, no rose gold option anymore, although the new gold option is that new brassy gold, the kind that looks as if the OG gold and rose gold had a baby. Yeah, it's a real undertone and cool rose gold, which I personally dig, don't judge. So look, if I'm completely honest, I don't know how I feel about the Air. Don't get me wrong, if you have any other iPad that isn't a Pro, then upgrading is a no-brainer honestly. The Air is fantastic for those coming from older generation iPads. This is a stellar upgrade without a doubt, but for those of us who have the 2017-inch iPad Pro, man, I don't know, this is the first time with Apple I've ever encountered this problem where I'm not sure if this is an upgrade or a downgrade. Now hold up, before you call me stupid, I know the A12 Bionic is a massive improvement from the A10X, but you compromise so much for it, like why? All to make the Air come in at a lower price point? Look, if I'm gonna be honest, the absence of ProMotion is big for me. The refresh rate on that thing is insane. Half the speakers I can live with, and the camera downgrade isn't a big deal for me. But that spec bump though. But in all seriousness, I think the question here is the Air an upgrade from the Pro? Yes and no. Processor and power wise, fat bet. That's an upgrade. It's also a downgrade though, because you now have a weaker refresh rate and 2 speakers instead of 4. So in conclusion, don't play yourself. If you have a Pro, I'd strongly advise to keep your Pro because come on, the performance on that thing is already amazing. But if money's no problem for you and you swipe in that American Express Platinum at McDonald's, my man, go for it. It's a definite yes for me if you're coming from older generations or other iPad models that aren't Pros. I'm not sure. I'm confused and I did a lot of research on the differences between the Pro and Air, and I may end up having to make a performance test on these two because I really want to see how much faster the Air is versus the Pro. So is this an upgrade? I mean, I guess. I just wish the Air could have followed suit like the Mini 5. the Mini 5 was the epitome of just a spec upgrade. Much better chipset, better display, and Apple Pencil support. Zero compromises. Here, it's a little trickier to call when you compare it to its direct predecessor, but a worthy upgrade if you are coming from older iPad models for sure, no doubt. Well guys, I've had so much fun doing these reviews for everyone and giving my honest opinion on them. I've never seen Apple go on a hardware press release bonanza. It's the coolest thing ever. I'm reviewing all of Apple's new hardware, so in order not to miss a single thing, make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell. That way, you'll always be up to date with your tech products, and also so you can vote on polls so you can let me know what video you want to see next. These reviews aren't slowing down soon. We still have so many products to cover, so stay tuned and thanks for watching.